The Blue Moon Bar was located in the heart of Sierra, on Main Street, between an old pharmacy and a sporting goods store. By 6:30 on Thursday evening, the place was already filling with the familiar hum of voices and the clinking of glasses. Behind the long wooden bar, polished to a shine by decades of use, stood Alexandra Turner, deftly juggling bottles and mixing cocktails. Alex had started working at the Blue Moon 3 years ago, after being fired from an insurance company, where the atmosphere had become unbearably toxic after she joined. Tony Ramirez, the bar's owner, hired her without asking any questions. He needed an experienced bartender, and Alex was the perfect fit. Her professionalism and ability to connect with customers quickly made her an integral part of the establishment. "Alex, can you make me that martini?" asked Frank Davison, a local lawyer who regularly stopped by the bar after work. He was one of the few customers who had treated her with respect from the beginning and never made inappropriate comments. "Sure, Frank. The usual. Dry with an olive?" Alex smiled, already reaching for the gin bottle. Her movements were precise and confident. Over the years, she had honed every gesture to perfection. In the corner of the bar sat a group of young men, obviously after a day's work on one of the local farms. One of them, a broad-shouldered blonde with a rough face, kept casting mocking glances at Alex and whispering something to his friends. She had learned to ignore such looks, although every time they were directed at her, something inside her tightened. "Don't listen to them," Sarah Jones, Alex's co-worker, said quietly as she walked by with a tray of dirty glasses. Sarah had been working at the bar for 5 years and had become a true friend and ally to Alex. "They're just drunk idiots." Alex nodded, continuing to wipe the glasses. In Sierra, as in many similar towns in Texas, attitudes toward people like her were mixed. Most residents held traditional views, although the younger generation was more tolerant. The Blue Moon Bar had become a refuge of sorts for her, a place where people of different views and professions gathered, and Tony made sure the atmosphere remained friendly. At 8 o'clock in the evening, Mary Turner, Alex's mother, walked into the bar. She had just finished her shift at the city hospital and looked tired. Mary had always supported her daughter, even when she was struggling to come to terms with her transition. For a 55-year-old nurse who had grown up in a conservative environment, accepting her daughter's transgender identity had not been easy, but her motherly love proved stronger than her prejudices. "Hi, sweetie." Mary sat down at the counter and ordered coffee. "How are you?" "Fine, Mom. Just a normal Thursday," Alex replied, pouring her mother's coffee into her favorite blue mug. "How was the hospital?" "Tough. Lots of heart attack patients lately. Stress must be taking its toll." Mary rubbed her tired eyes. "By the way, I saw you near the park last week with some man. Who was he?" Alex felt her cheeks begin to burn. "Just a friend, Mom. Nothing serious." "Alex, you're a grown woman. If you have a boyfriend, you can tell me," Mary said gently. "I just want you to be happy." "I know, Mom. It's just too early to talk about it." The truth was much more complicated. For the past 4 months, Alex had been dating a man who worked in the city, but their relationship was a closely guarded secret. He insisted that they only meet in secluded places, in the suburbs, in neighboring towns, never in downtown Sierra. Alex understood his concerns, but with each passing day, the secrecy weighed more and more heavily on her. Around 9 o'clock in the evening, the bar began to fill up with evening patrons. Teachers from the local school arrived, along with several medical workers from the hospital and a couple of small business owners. The Blue Moon was one of the few places in Sierra where you could relax after work without being judged. "Alex, are you going to the town festival this weekend?" asked Jessica, an elementary school teacher, ordering a second glass of wine. "I don't know. Maybe," Alex replied evasively. She wanted to go, but she knew her secret lover would be there with his colleagues and friends, and they would have to pretend they didn't know each other. The thought hurt. Tony Ramirez, a strong man in his 40s with a kind face and piercing eyes, approached the bar with some documents in his hands. "Alex, can we talk for a minute?" He nodded toward a small office behind the bar. In the office, Tony sat down at an old wooden table and gestured for Alex to take a chair opposite him. "I want to talk to you about a promotion," he began. "You're doing a great job, the customers love you, and I'm thinking about making you senior bartender with a raise." Alex raised her eyebrows in surprise. "Really?" "Absolutely. You've earned it. But there's one condition. You'll have to fill in for me when I'm away. That means more responsibility and more visibility. Are you up for it?" Alex thought about it. The promotion meant recognition of her professionalism, but it also meant greater visibility in the city community. That could complicate her secret relationship even more. "Give me a couple of days to think about it, okay?" she asked. "Sure. Take your time." Back at the bar, Alex noticed that the group of farmers in the corner had become louder and more aggressive. The blonde man, who had been glancing at her earlier, was now pointing at her and saying something to his friends. Sarah looked at Alex anxiously. "Should we ask them to leave?" she whispered. "Not yet, but keep an eye on them," Alex replied, trying to stay calm. Around 10 o'clock, as the bar began to empty, Alex received a text message. "Can we meet tomorrow night? Same place." Her heart began to race. She quickly replied, "Yes, of course." At 10:30, the group of drunk farmers finally decided to leave. The blonde man walked over to the bar to pay his tab and looked closely at Alex. "You know what, beautiful?" He swayed slightly from the alcohol. "It doesn't matter what you were doing there. You look good." Alex felt a chill run down her spine. "Thanks for the compliment. That'll be $40. Maybe we could go out sometime?" The man put the bills on the bar and didn't rush to leave. "Sorry, but no, I'm busy." "Busy? Who's the lucky guy who gets to date such an unusual girl?" His voice was mocking. Tony appeared next to the counter as if by magic. "Jim, I think your friends are waiting for you." His voice was calm but firm. Jim looked at Tony, then back at Alex, shrugged, and headed for the exit. "Thanks," Alex said quietly. "You're welcome. Are you okay?" "Yeah, I'm fine. You get used to it." But it was impossible to get used to. Every incident like this reminded Alex how vulnerable she was in this city, how difficult it was to find real closeness and understanding. Her secret romance was the only source of real warmth and acceptance in her life, but even that was overshadowed by the need to hide. At 11 o'clock, Blue Moon closed. Alex and Sarah cleaned up the bar, preparing it for the next day. "Do you ever think about leaving here?" Sarah asked, wiping down the tables. "Sometimes, but my mom is here, my job, and where would I go?" Alex stacked the chairs. "Besides, it's not better everywhere. There are problems everywhere. But in big cities, at least there are more people who understand." "Maybe, but there are good people here too. You, Tony, Mom, some of the customers. And your mysterious boyfriend?" Sarah smiled slyly. Alex blushed. "What are you talking about?" "Alex, I'm not blind. You've been glowing for the last few months, and you're always looking at your phone. Who is he?" "It's too early to talk about it." Alex avoided her friend's gaze. "It's complicated." "I understand. Well, the main thing is that he appreciates you. You deserve to be happy." Walking home late that night, Alex thought about Sarah's words. She did deserve to be happy, but happiness seemed so fragile and unattainable. She was nervous about tomorrow's meeting. She needed to have a serious talk about their relationship. The secrecy was becoming unbearable. The Sierra Farm equipment dealership was located on the outskirts of town, on a wide strip of land along the highway leading to the agricultural areas. Huge tractors, combines, and other equipment stood in neat rows under the open sky, gleaming with fresh paint in the morning sun. On Friday morning, Jason Miller parked his beat-up Ford pickup in the employee parking lot and headed for the main building. Jason had been working at the dealership for 6 years, starting as a mechanic and gradually working his way up to lead salesman. At 31, he was one of the company's most successful employees, skilled at finding common ground with farmers and ranchers. He was known as an honest, reliable guy who never tried to sell unnecessary equipment. "Good morning, Jace." Bill Hansen, a colleague from the sales department, called out to him. Bill was 5 years older, married, had 3 children, and was considered the informal leader among the salespeople. Ready for another day of hunting for customers? Always, Jason replied as he headed for his desk in the spacious sales office. The walls were covered with pictures of equipment, company awards, and a calendar featuring tractors. Rick Coleman, the dealership manager, emerged from his office with a cup of coffee in his hands. He was a strongly built man in his mid-40s with graying temples and piercing eyes. Rick had been managing the dealership for 10 years and was highly respected by his employees. "Jason, I have an interesting customer for you," Rick said as he approached the desk. "Tom Anderson wants to replace his old combine. He asked for you specifically. Give him a call after lunch." "Great. Tom's a good customer. He always knows what he wants." "That's why I trust you with people like that." Rick patted Jason on the shoulder. "By the way, we're having a company party tomorrow night to celebrate the end of the season. I hope you'll come. Janet will be cooking her famous barbecue." Jason nodded, though he cringed inwardly. Company parties at Rick's house were always family affairs, where everyone came with their wives and children. Jason always came alone, which raised questions and jokes from his colleagues. "Sure, I'll be there. Isn't Janet going to mind cooking for such a crowd?" "Come on. She loves having guests. By the way, when are you finally going to bring a girl over? It's time to settle down, man." Rick laughed good-naturedly. "Not until I find the right one," Jason replied with his usual answer, feeling the familiar tension in his chest. After Rick left, Bill moved his chair closer. "Listen, Jace, I have an idea. My wife knows a great girl, Susan Parker. She works at a bank, is very pretty, and comes from a good family. Maybe we could set up a double date?" "Thanks, Bill, but I'm really busy with work right now." "Jason, you're 31. You can't devote your whole life to work. Susan is a really great girl. Her father owns a ranch in Milam County. Can you imagine the connections?" Jason tried to smile. "Maybe sometime." The truth was that Jason had been dating Alex for the past 4 months, and the relationship had turned his life upside down. They had met by chance at a bookstore in a neighboring town where Jason was on business. Alex was looking for technical literature for her bartending classes, and he was looking for an engine repair manual. They struck up a conversation, had a cup of coffee, and Jason felt something he had never felt before. At noon, Danny Wilson, a young mechanic who had recently been hired, approached Jason. Danny was from a small town in eastern Texas and held extremely conservative views. "Hey, Jason, have you heard about that bar downtown where, one of those perverts works?" Danny lowered his voice, looking around. Jason's heart skipped a beat. "What are you talking about?" "The Blue Moon. There's a guy who's turned himself into a woman working there. My cousin was there yesterday and told me all about it. He said it was disgusting. How can they let people like that work with other people?" "I don't know. It's none of my business." Jason tried to sound indifferent, but his hands began to tremble. "How is it none of your business? We live in the same city. Soon they'll be everywhere. In schools and hospitals. What will our children see?" Danny was getting more and more agitated. "Danny, don't you think we have more important things to worry about?" Bill interjected. "Let's talk about work." "You're right, Bill. It just makes me so angry. In our day, something like that would have been unthinkable." After lunch, Jason called Tom Anderson and arranged to meet him at his farm. On the way there, he couldn't get Danny's words out of his head. Every time someone spoke about Alex in that tone, something inside him broke. He loved her, but he couldn't defend her in public, couldn't even admit his feelings. Tom's farm was a 20-minute drive from town. The old farmer met Jason at the gate and showed him around the fields. "You see, Jason, the old combine isn't cutting it anymore. I need something more modern, but not too complicated. I'm not getting any younger to be messing with electronics." "I understand, Tom. We have just the model for you. It's reliable, easy to operate, and has good performance." They talked for over an hour, discussing technical specifications and prices. Jason loved this part of his job, helping people find what they really needed. "You know, Jason, you're one of the few salespeople who doesn't try to sell me something I don't need," Tom said, shaking his hand. Come by on Monday with the paperwork and we'll finalize the deal. On the way home, Jason stopped at a roadside cafe to drink a cup of coffee and collect his thoughts. A text message came in from Alex. How's it going? I miss you. He quickly replied, Everything's fine. I miss you too. See you tonight? Yes, same place at 8. The usual place was the parking lot of an abandoned factory on the outskirts of town. They had been meeting there for several months, away from prying eyes. Jason understood how humiliating it was for Alex, but he didn't know what else to do. When he returned to the office, he found a heated discussion about the upcoming company party. Jason, are you sure you're coming alone? Asked Mike Torres, another salesman. Rick's going to ask you again when you're getting married? Let him ask, Jason shrugged. Listen, maybe you really should meet someone. At our age, everyone else is married. You look weird, Mike insisted. Mike's right, Bill agreed. People start talking. They say you're too withdrawn, and in our business, reputation is important. Jason felt the walls closing in on him. What does it matter what people say? It makes a big difference, Rick's voice interjected. The manager had approached unnoticed and heard the end of the conversation. Jason, customers trust family people. It's important to them to know that a salesperson is stable and reliable. A 31-year-old bachelor raises questions. What kind of questions? Well, Rick hesitated. People think differently. Maybe he doesn't know how to build relationships, or worse. You know what I mean. Jason understood perfectly well. In towns like Sierra, an unmarried man over 30 was automatically suspect. Either he was a loser, or he had problems with his orientation. Either way, it was bad for business. I just haven't met the right girl, he repeated his mantra. Then look harder. Bill offered to introduce you to a nice girl. After work, Jason drove home to his small apartment on the outskirts of town. 1 bedroom, a kitchen, and a living room. Modest, but clean and cozy. He took a shower, got changed, and drove to meet Alex. She was already waiting for him, parked near an old warehouse. When she saw his headlights, she got out of her car. Even in the dim light, she was beautiful. Long brown hair, a slender figure, a soft smile. Jason hugged her, and for a few seconds, the whole world disappeared. Hi, beautiful. Hi, how was your day? The usual. Sold a combine harvester, listened to a lecture about getting married. Alex pulled away and looked him in the eyes. And what did you say? The same thing I always say, that I haven't met the right one. Jason, she said sadly, we can't go on like this forever. I know. Just give me some time. How much time? 4 months, Jace. 4 months we've been dating like teenagers who are afraid of their parents. They got into his car to talk. Alex took his hand. I got a promotion offer. Tony wants to make me senior bartender. That's great. You deserve it. But that means more responsibility, more visibility. And I'm tired of hiding, Jace. I want you to come to the bar. I want to introduce you to my friends, to my mom. Jason felt a familiar panic rising. Alex, you know how hard it is. I know. But there has to be a way out. We love each other. Of course we do, but what? Are you afraid of losing your job, your friends? I'm afraid of losing everything, Jason exploded. You don't understand what it's like. Today a colleague called you a pervert right in front of me. My boss is hinting that unmarried men are unreliable. If they find out you're seeing me, you'll find another job. The world is full of dealerships. That's easy for you to say. What about my reputation, my connections? I've lived here my whole life. Alex let go of his hand. And I haven't lived here my whole life? You think it's easy for me? Every day I go to work knowing that half the customers look at me like I'm a freak. But I have friends who accept me for who I am. That's different. How is it different? Because you have a choice and I don't? You can pretend to be normal, but I can't? Jason didn't know how to respond. He could pretend, and that gave him a privilege Alex didn't have. I'm sorry. I didn't mean it. I know, but we need to decide something. I can't keep seeing you in secret anymore. It's killing me. They sat in the car for another hour, hugging and talking about the future. Alex told him about Tony's proposal, about her dreams, about how she wanted to live openly. Jason listened and realized that sooner or later he would have to choose between her and the life he had built in Sierra. "We have a company party tomorrow," he said when it was time to part. "Are you going alone?" "How else?" "Take me with you." "Alex." "Jace, sooner or later we'll have to tell people. Why not tomorrow?" "Because I'm not ready." "When will you be ready?" Jason didn't answer. They said goodbye, and he drove home with a heavy heart. At home, he lay in bed for a long time, thinking about how their relationship had reached an impasse. Alex was right. It couldn't go on like this. But the thought of opening up to his colleagues and friends made him panic. The next morning, as he got ready for work, Jason looked at himself in the mirror. He was a typical guy from a small Texas town, a successful salesman, his boss's favorite. But inside, he felt like a fraud. His whole life was built on a lie, and every day that lie became heavier. Saturday was clear and warm for October. Rick Coleman's house was located in the prestigious Sierra neighborhood, on a hill overlooking the city. The spacious Texas-style ranch was surrounded by a manicured lawn and a large backyard where barbecue grills were already smoking. By 5 o'clock in the evening, employees of the dealership began arriving with their families. Jason parked between Bill Hansen's minivan and Mike Torres's SUV. He was carrying a bottle of good whiskey, a traditional gift for the host. He took a deep breath, preparing himself for another evening of pretense and awkward questions about his personal life. "Jason, finally!" Janet Coleman, Rick's wife, greeted him at the door. She was a friendly woman in her 40s, mother of 2 teenagers, who loved entertaining guests. "Come on in. Everyone's in the backyard." The backyard was full of people. Children were running around on the grass, men were standing in groups around the grills with beers in their hands, and women were gathered around tables discussing local news. Jason immediately felt a familiar sensation. He was here, but he didn't belong in this world of married couples and established traditions. "Hey, Jace, come over here." Bill waved at him from where he stood next to the grill with Rick and a few other colleagues. Jason approached the group, shook hands, and accepted the beer offered to him. "So, how's it going with Tom Anderson?" Rick asked, turning the stakes. "Great. We're signing the contract for the new combine on Monday. He's very happy." "Now that's professionalism." Rick patted him on the shoulder. "Tom is one of the pickiest customers in the county." The conversation flowed smoothly to work topics, new models of equipment, and plans for the next season. Jason felt more confident when talking about work. This was his element. "By the way, Jason," Bill lowered his voice. "Remember I told you about Susan? She's here today. Janet invited her especially." Jason's heart sank. "What?" "Susan Parker, the girl I told you about. She's over there in the pink dress, talking to the wives." Jason followed his gaze and saw an attractive blonde in her late 20s, indeed wearing a pink dress. She was laughing at something Mike's wife was saying and looked very sweet. "Bill, why did you do that?" Come on. You'll meet her, talk to her. She's very nice. And by the way, she asked about you." "She did?" "Yeah. I told her we had a great guy who, for some reason, was still single. She was interested." Rick grinned. "Bill, you're such a matchmaker. But it's a good idea. Jason, you really should be going. I told you I'm not ready for a relationship." "When will you be ready?" Mike interjected. "When you're 40, 50? Man, your best years are passing you by." "Mike's right," Danny Wilson agreed, approaching the group with a new can of beer. "At our age, we need to think about family. Otherwise, people start thinking things." "What kind of things?" Jason asked, even though he already knew the answer. "Well," Danny hesitated, then lowered his voice. "What?" Are you into one of those non-traditional types? An awkward silence fell. Rick coughed. Danny, don't be ridiculous. I'm not talking about Jason. I'm just saying what people might think, and in our line of work, reputation is important. Jason felt his hands begin to shake. Excuse me, I'll go get another beer. He headed for the house, needing a few minutes alone. The kitchen was quiet and cool. Jason took out his phone and saw a message from Alex. How's the party? When will we see you? He wanted to reply, but then he heard voices in the living room. Yes, it's terrible, said a woman he didn't recognize. Can you believe what's going on in our town? What are you talking about? Janet asked. That bar downtown, the one where, the man who turned into a woman works. Jason froze in the kitchen doorway. Oh, the Blue Moon, Bill's wife replied. Yes, I heard. How awful. My friend was there last week. She said it was disgusting. How can they allow people like that to work with regular customers? What does the police say? Asked another woman. What can they say? The law is on their side now. All these liberal ideas from the big cities have made their way here. It's scary to think that our children might see that. Jason couldn't take it anymore and left through the back door into the yard. He needed some fresh air. How could they talk about Alex like that? The kindest, most sincere person he knew. Jason? A voice behind him made him turn around. Susan Parker was standing on the porch, holding a glass of wine. Are you okay? You look upset. Yeah, I'm fine. It's just getting hot. Susan approached him. She was indeed beautiful. Light hair, blue eyes, a pleasant smile. She was exactly the kind of girl his colleagues would consider the ideal wife. Bill told me about you. He says you're the best salesman in the company. Bill exaggerates. I doubt it. I work at a bank. I know how loans for equipment are arranged. Your clients always get approved without any problems, which means you only sell to reliable people. They talked about work, the city, mutual acquaintances. Susan was an intelligent, interesting conversationalist. In another life, Jason might have been interested in her. But now, every minute of conversation felt like a betrayal of Alex. Maybe we could go out to dinner sometime, Susan suggested as their conversation was coming to an end. I'm really busy at work right now. I understand. But if you're free, here's my card. She handed him an elegant bank card. The rest of the evening passed in a haze of awkwardness. Colleagues winked at Jason and asked him about Susan. Rick even took him aside. She's a great girl, isn't she? From a good family, smart, beautiful. What more could a man want? Rick, I appreciate your concern, but no buts, Jason. It's time you settled down. And Susan is a great choice. Her father owns one of the largest ranches in the county. Can you imagine the business opportunities? At 10 o'clock in the evening, Jason was finally able to leave. He texted Alex, I can meet up. Same place? The reply came immediately. Yes, I'll be there in half an hour. Alex was already waiting for him at the abandoned warehouse. She got out of the car, and even in the dark, Jason could see that she was upset. How was the office party? She asked without preamble. Fine. Jace, I feel like something's wrong. What happened? Jason told her about his colleagues' conversations, about Susan, about how the women in the house had been talking about her. With every word, Alex's face grew darker. I see, she said when he finished. And what did you say when that Susan asked you out? That I was busy. And when your coworkers were talking about me as if I were ugly. I left. I couldn't listen to it. But you didn't defend me. Alex, I couldn't. Of course you couldn't. Because that would mean admitting that you're dating me. They stood facing each other in the headlights, a gulf of misunderstanding between them. This isn't fair, Jason said. You know how I feel about you. I know. But that's not enough, Jace. Love isn't just what happens between us when we're alone. It's being willing to stand by someone in front of the whole world. What if I lose my job, my friends, the whole life I've built? What about my life? Alex's voice began to tremble. Do you think it's easy for me to face hatred every day? But I have people who support me. Mom, Tony, Sarah. They accept me for who I am. That's different. They knew you before. Before what? Before I became myself? No, that's not what I meant. Jace, do you even accept me? Or do you just like that we're dating in secret and no one knows? The question sounded like a slap in the face. Of course I do. Then prove it. Come to the bar tomorrow, meet my friends, show everyone that we're together. Alex. I'm serious, Jace. Either you're ready to be with me for real or what? Or we need to end this. Jason felt the ground slip away beneath his feet. Are you giving me an ultimatum? I'm giving you a choice. You can choose me or choose your secret life, but I won't be your dirty little secret anymore. That's not fair. Unfair? Alex laughed, but there was no joy in her laughter. Unfair is dating someone for 4 months who's ashamed to be seen with you. Unfair is staying silent when people call you ugly. Give me time. How much time? Another 4 months? A year? Jace, I'm 28 years old. I don't want to waste my life on someone who isn't willing to fight for me. They stood in silence, and Jason knew he had reached the point of no return. Alex was right. She deserved more than secret meetings and whispered, I love you. Okay, he finally said. Give me until tomorrow night. I'll make a decision. Tomorrow night? Alex nodded. Either you show up at the bar as my boyfriend, or we're not seeing each other anymore. She kissed him on the cheek and got into her car. Jason watched her drive away, feeling his world crumble. At home, he sat in the kitchen for a long time, holding Susan's business card in his hands. The simple solution was right in front of him. Call her, start dating, become the person everyone expected him to be. But when he closed his eyes, he saw Alex's face, her smile when she was happy, her tears when he refused to go out with her again. He loved her more than life itself, but that love demanded sacrifices he wasn't ready to make. Sunday passed in agonizing reflection. Jason tried to imagine how it would go at Blue Moon, how his colleagues would see him, how Rick would find out, how his life in Sierra would change. He thought about what they would say at the church he sometimes attended. He thought about how his farming clients would react, many of whom held extremely conservative views. By Sunday evening, he still hadn't made a decision. Alex hadn't written or called. She had given him time to think and was now waiting. At 7:30 on Monday, Jason sat in his car outside the Blue Moon, gathering his courage to go in. Through the glass door, he could see Alex behind the bar, laughing at something Sarah had said. He took out his phone and texted, I can't. I'm sorry. The reply came a few minutes later. I understand. Don't text me anymore. Jason started the car and drove home, feeling like he had made the biggest mistake of his life. But the choice had been made, and there was no turning back. On Tuesday morning, everything was normal at work. His co-workers asked about Susan, and Rick inquired about his weekend plans. Jason responded with one-word answers, trying to return to his usual routine. Around lunchtime, Susan texted him, Hey, how are you? Maybe we should go out for dinner after all. Jason stared at the message for a long time, then replied, Okay, how about tomorrow night? The reply came immediately, Great, I can't wait. That evening, he was driving home and against his will turned toward the Blue Moon. From a distance, he could see Alex working behind the bar. She looked sad but dignified. When she looked up and glanced toward the window, their eyes met for a second. Alex looked away, and Jason knew he had lost her forever. Wednesday, October 23rd, 2024. It was midnight. Alex Turner was closing the Blue Moon alone. Sarah had left early because of a headache. The last customers had left the bar around midnight, and now she was methodically cleaning the bar, washing glasses, and counting the day's takings. Work helped her not to think about the events of the past few weeks. It had been 10 days since she broke up with Jason. Alex had accepted Tony's offer of a promotion and was now the head bartender. But the joy of her professional growth was overshadowed by the pain of her loss. She was trying to move on, but every night, as she locked up the bar, she couldn't help thinking about how things could have been different. People in town already knew about her new position. Some regular customers congratulated her, while others were wary. Last night, a group of young men tried to start a fight, but Tony quickly threw them out. The atmosphere in Sierra was becoming increasingly tense. After finishing cleaning up, Alex locked the bar and headed for her car. The parking lot was empty, and the streetlights cast long shadows between the buildings. She lived in a small house in a quiet neighborhood 10 minutes' drive from downtown, a modest but cozy place she had been renting for 3 years. The road home wound through the sleeping town. There were few cars, the windows of the houses were dark, and only the 24-hour gas station on the outskirts glowed with neon lights. Alex turned on the radio. Quiet music played, helping her relax after a hard day's work. Parking near her house, she noticed an unfamiliar car across the street. It was a dark sedan with its headlights dimmed. In Sierra, people knew each other, and unfamiliar cars in residential areas attracted attention. Alex paused for a moment, peering into the darkness, but saw nothing suspicious. The house was silent. Alex climbed the steps to the porch, taking her keys out of her bag. She heard footsteps on the gravel behind her. She turned around. Alex! The voice was familiar, but there was something new in it. Despair mixed with rage. "What are you doing here?" she asked, not turning to face the uninvited guest. "I need to talk to you." "We have nothing to talk about. You made your choice." "I tried, Alex. I tried to live the way everyone wants to live, but I can't." Now she turned around. In the moonlight, she could see his tortured face, his trembling hands, the glint of something metallic. "What's that?" "You ruined my life." "I didn't ruin anything. I just wanted you to be proud of me." "Now everyone knows. Susan is asking why I'm acting strange. My colleagues suspect something. I can't sleep. I can't work. No one knows anything because I haven't told anyone. But they can sense it. Rick is already hinting that I've changed. Yesterday, Bill asked me straight out if I had problems." Alex slowly climbed the next step, trying to increase the distance between them. "Listen, if you've changed your mind, we can talk. But not here, not like this. It's too late. You said it yourself. It's all or nothing. But I can't choose either." "You can. You just need time." "Time?" His voice grew louder, more aggressive. "I've been seeing Susan for a week. Yesterday she wanted to introduce me to her parents, and all I can think about is you. Then break up with her. And then what? Become an outcast in my own town? Lose my job, my friends, everything I've worked for? But you'll be yourself. I don't know who I am." The cry echoed in the quiet street. A light came on in the house next door, but went out immediately. People preferred not to get involved in other people's business. "You know," the voice grew quieter, but dangerous notes appeared in it. "If you weren't here..." "What?" "If you weren't here, I could live a normal life. I would have married Susan, had children, become what everyone expects me to be." Alex felt a chill in her stomach. "You're scaring me. You scare me. With your very existence. Every day I wake up and think about you. Every time I kiss Susan, I imagine your lips." "Then stop it." "I can't." He took a step forward. "I can't forget you. I can't live with you. I can't live without you." "Please go. Tomorrow, when you've calmed down, we'll talk. Tomorrow, I'll be a coward again. Tomorrow, I'll choose safety again." The glint of metal became clearer. Alex realized it was a gun. "Don't do anything stupid." "This isn't stupid. It's the only way to be free." "Free from what?" "From loving you." A shot rang out in the night, echoing between the houses. Alex fell onto the porch steps, and silence returned to the street. Only a few houses had their lights on, but no one came out to check on the sound. In Texas, people shot guns for all sorts of reasons. The car started and disappeared into the night. Thursday, October 24th, 2024, 7 in the morning. Mrs. Dolores Vasquez, Alex's 67-year-old neighbor, went out to water her flowers in the front yard as usual. She loved gardening early in the morning before it got too hot. Noticing a motionless figure on the steps of the house across the street, the woman first thought that Alex had fallen asleep on the porch. As she got closer, Mrs. Vasquez realized that something terrible was happening. She screamed and ran to her house to call the police. At 7:23 a.m., the first patrol car arrived at the scene. Officer David Ryan, a young cop with 3 years on the force, quickly assessed the situation and called for backup. By 7:45, the street was blocked off and the crime scene was cordoned off with tape. Detective Sofia Martinez received a call at her home at 7:30 a.m. At 42, she was one of the most experienced detectives in the Sierra Police Department, specializing in investigating violent crimes. In her 15 years on the force, she had seen a lot, but murders were rare in their town. Arriving at the scene, Detective Martinez quickly surveyed the area. The victim was lying face up on the steps of the porch, dressed in a bartender's uniform. The only wound was a gunshot to the chest. There were no signs of a struggle, robbery, or sexual assault. "What do we know?" she asked Officer Ryan. "The victim is Alexandra Turner, 28, who worked as a bartender at the Blue Moon. A neighbor found the body around 7 this morning. Preliminary reports indicate that death occurred between 1 and 2 a.m. Any witnesses? None so far. We're interviewing neighbors." Detective Martinez knew about Alex. In a town the size of Sierra, everyone knew everyone else, especially those who stood out. The murder of a transgender woman immediately suggested a hate crime. Weapon? None found. The killer probably took it with them. By 9 in the morning, a team of forensic investigators arrived. They carefully examined the crime scene, collected evidence, and took photographs. They found tire tracks on the ground near the porch, but they were too blurred to be identified. Detective Martinez began interviewing neighbors. Most had not heard anything or preferred not to get involved. Only Mrs. Vasquez and her husband confirmed that they had heard a loud bang similar to a gunshot around 1 a.m., but did not think anything of it. "Did you notice any suspicious cars?" asked the detective. "No, nothing out of the ordinary," replied Mrs. Vasquez. Although Alex had seemed sad lately, she always used to say hello, but recently she had started avoiding conversation. At 10:30, Detective Martinez went to the Blue Moon. The bar was closed, but Tony Ramirez arrived after hearing about the tragedy. He looked shaken. "I can't believe it," he repeated. "Who would want Alex dead? She never hurt anyone." "Mr. Ramirez, did Alexandra have any enemies? Any conflicts with clients?" "There were some unpleasant situations. You know how people treat people like her. But nothing serious. I always protected my employees." "Tell me about the last few weeks. Did anything change in Alexandra's behavior?" Tony thought for a moment. "Yes, she became more withdrawn. She used to always smile and joke with clients. But recently she was often lost in thought and looked sad." "Any possible reasons?" "I don't know for sure, but I suspect she was in a relationship with someone. A few months ago she was very happy, and then she changed dramatically." "Did she talk about a boyfriend?" "No, she was very secretive. But women sense these things, you know." The next step was to interview Sarah Jones, Alex's colleague at the bar. Sarah was crying and had difficulty answering questions. "She was my best friend," the girl sobbed. "I knew she had a secret, but she didn't want to share it." "What secret?" "A man. She was seeing someone, but she kept it a secret. She said it was complicated." "Did she mention any names? Give any hints?" "No, she just said he worked in town, and that they couldn't be together openly." "Why?" "I don't know. Alex just said he was afraid of being judged." Detective Martinez wrote down every detail. The secret romance explained a lot. The victim's emotional state, the motive for the murder, the time and place of the crime. By evening, she had interviewed Alex's mother, Mary Turner. The woman was devastated. "She deserved love," Mary cried. "She fought her whole life to be herself. And this is how it ended." "Mrs. Turner, did Alexandra tell you about her relationship?" "She hinted that she was seeing someone. I was happy. She had been lonely for too long. But now I realize that this man brought her nothing but grief." "Did she mention any names?" "No. She just said he was a nice man but afraid of people." "Afraid of people?" "Afraid of what people would say if they found out about their relationship." By the end of the first day of the investigation, Detective Martinez had pieced together a preliminary picture. Alexandra Turner was killed by someone she knew, most likely a secret lover. The motive could be related to a breakup or fear of exposure. The killer acted in the heat of the moment, but was organized enough to avoid witnesses and take the weapon with them. The next step was to find men who could have been secretly dating Alex and find out which of them had access to a firearm. Friday, October 25th, 2024. Morning. Detective Martinez began the second day of the investigation by studying surveillance camera footage. There weren't many cameras in Sierra, just a few on the main streets, near banks and large stores. A camera at a gas station on the way to Alex's house captured a dark sedan driving toward her neighborhood at 12:47 a.m. and returning at 1:23 a.m. The make is unclear. The license plate is not visible, the technician reported. But it's definitely not a local car, too new for this neighborhood. Martinez decided to focus on finding men who might have been seeing Alex. She compiled a list of potential candidates based on witness statements, working in town, aged 25 to 40, with a reason to hide a relationship. She decided to check Danny Wilson first, a young mechanic who had openly spoken out against Alex. But his alibi was ironclad. On Wednesday evening, he was at his cousin's birthday party in a neighboring town, as confirmed by 10 witnesses. Next on the list was Michael Stevens, a local school teacher who had recently divorced and had been seen at the Blue Moon several times. But his alibi was also confirmed. He was at home with his sick son, as evidenced by the doctor's call records. By lunchtime, Detective Martinez was feeling frustrated. She decided to return to the bar and talk to the regular customers. "Detective, have you checked the auto dealership?" Frank Davison, a lawyer who was a regular at the bar, asked unexpectedly. "I remember Alex asking me about some legal issues related to employment a few months ago." "What kind of issues?" "Something about discrimination in the workplace, whether a person could lose their job because of a personal relationship. I thought it was for a friend." "Did she mention the dealership?" "No, but I remember her asking several questions about people who work with farmers, equipment salespeople, purchasing agents. This was the first concrete lead." Martinez went to Sierra Farm Equipment and asked for a list of all male employees. Manager Rick Coleman looked puzzled. "Are you suspecting one of my people?" "It's a routine check. We need to rule out anyone who might have known the victim." Martinez received a list of 12 names. Most were middle-aged married men with solid reputations. But one name caught her attention: Jason Miller, 31, single, top salesman. "Tell me about Mr. Miller," she asked Rick. "Jason? Great employee, one of our best salesmen. Reliable, honest, the customers love him." "Marital status?" "Single, but he recently started dating a very nice girl, Susan Parker from the bank. We're all happy for him." "When did he start dating Miss Parker?" 2 weeks ago, maybe a little longer. They met at our company party." Martinez felt her pulse quicken. The time frame coincided with Alex's depression. "Can I talk to Mr. Miller?" "Of course. He's with a client right now, but he'll be back soon." Jason appeared half an hour later. Martinez immediately noticed his nervousness, shaking hands, darting eyes, sweaty palms. "Mr. Miller, I'm Detective Martinez. I'm investigating the murder of Alexandra Turner. Did you know the victim?" "I've heard of her." She worked at a bar downtown. Have you ever been to the Blue Moon? No, I don't go to bars very often. Where were you on Wednesday night between midnight and 2 a.m.? At home, sleeping. Can anyone confirm that? I live alone. Martinez noticed Jason swallow and avoid eye contact. His behavior screamed that he was hiding something. Mr. Miller, do you own a firearm? Yes, a handgun for self-defense. It's licensed. Can I see it? It's at home. Okay. I'll need to check it out to rule it out. After talking to Jason, Martinez drove to Susan Parker's house. The young woman was surprised by the police visit. Jason? But we've only been dating for 2 weeks. I don't know much about him. How does he act? Anything unusual? Well, Susan hesitated. He seems distracted sometimes. We had dinner last night and he was constantly distracted. He wasn't even listening to what I was saying. Did he mention Alexandra Turner? No. Who is she? The woman who was killed the day before yesterday. Susan paled. My God. Do you think Jason... I'm not thinking anything. Just checking all the victims' acquaintances. That evening, Martinez obtained a search warrant for Jason's home. She arrived there with 2 officers at 8 o'clock. Jason met them at the door, looking exhausted. Mr. Miller, we have a search warrant. Where is your gun? In the bedroom, in the nightstand. They went into the small bedroom. Jason opened the nightstand drawer, but it was empty. That's strange. It should be here. When was the last time you saw it? I don't remember exactly. A few days ago. Mr. Miller, I need you to come with me to the station for further questioning. In the interrogation room, Jason sat at a metal table, nervously fidgeting with his hands. Martinez placed photos of Alex in front of him. Mr. Miller, are you sure you didn't know Alexandra Turner? I'm sure. Then explain this to me. She showed him a printout of phone calls. Your number called the victim's number 47 times in the last 4 months. Jason's face turned white as a sheet. Mr. Miller, I strongly advise you to tell the truth. Lying will only make your situation worse. Jason covered his face with his hands. We were seeing each other. For how long? 4 months. Why did you lie? Because it would ruin my life. Tell me about your relationship. Jason began to speak, and the story poured out. He told her how they met, about their secret meetings, about the pressure from his colleagues, about Alex's ultimatum. She wanted me to come to the bar openly, but I couldn't. I work in a conservative environment. My clients, my colleagues, they wouldn't understand. What happened on Wednesday night? I was trying to date Susan. I thought it would help me forget Alex, but it didn't work. Every day I thought about her. And you went to her house? Jason nodded without looking up. I wanted to talk, to tell her I was willing to try, but when I saw her... What happened? She said it was too late, that I'd missed my chance, and I realized I'd really lost her forever. Where's the gun, Jason? I threw it in the lake, on the way out of town. Do you understand what you're accused of? Yes. His voice was barely audible. I killed the only person I ever loved. The next day, the news of Jason Miller's arrest shook Sierra. The dealership was filled with shock and disbelief. I can't believe it, Rick Coleman repeated. Jason seemed like such a normal guy. Susan Parker gave an interview to the local newspaper. I felt like he was hiding something, but I never thought that poor woman. She just wanted to love and be loved. Mary Turner greeted the news of the arrest with mixed feelings. I don't feel any relief, she told reporters. My daughter is dead. This man destroyed 2 lives, hers and his. Tony Ramirez closed Blue Moon for a week in memory of Alex. He hung a sign on the door. In memory of Alexandra Turner, she deserved love, whatever that may be. A debate about tolerance and acceptance began in the town. Some residents expressed sympathy for Alex's family and condemned the murder. Others preferred to remain silent or quietly approve of Jason's actions. Pastor Davis held a special service, speaking about the need for love and understanding. God created us all different. Our job is to love one another, not judge. Jason Miller was charged with first-degree murder. His lawyer tried to get the charge reduced to manslaughter, citing his client's emotional state, but the prosecutor insisted on full responsibility. This was a premeditated murder, the prosecutor said at the preliminary hearing. The defendant came to the victim with a gun, knowing he intended to harm her. The trial was set for March of the following year. Jason faced life in prison. Jason spent his days in a pretrial detention cell in complete despair. He knew his life was over. His career was ruined, his reputation destroyed, and his future reduced to the gray walls of a prison cell. The story of Alexandra Turner and Jason Miller is a tragic reminder of the price of prejudice and the importance of accepting people for who they are. In the town of Sierra, this tragedy changed a lot. Some people became more tolerant, while others became even more entrenched in their prejudices. But one thing was clear: love should not be a secret, and fear cannot justify murder.